We are live, Your Worship.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this regular council meeting of October 8th, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. So I want to make that motion. Councillor Cherry, Councillor Lucel, all in favor?
Just, oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 24th. Councillor Orlando, is there something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, regarding adoption of the agenda, sorry, I'm just having an internet connection issue. Don't have a document in front of me in addition, regards to additions to the agenda. Is that under adoption of the agenda?
The only addition is in camera.
I'm struggling. It's just opening my internet connection here is a little bit thing. Just regarding, the question is regarding correspondence we received on September 25th from the Roller Derby Society, and our policy that we adopted this year talks about including it, including responses or including it on the agenda. I know we've had some issues lately with the letters policy, and I'm just seeking to see if that's going to be included in correspondence today.
You know anything about that?
I do, yes. Councillor Orlando, the letter will be going forward to the October 22nd agenda as service level discussions are held in camera. So we wanted to ensure that it was a smooth transition forward for a response.
So it's going forward on October 22nd?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks for the response.
Okay. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 24th. Councillor Cherry, Councillor Devlin, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'll just move on to announcements from the mayor. The only thing I have this week is our multi-use pathway is now complete, and we are going to do a ribbon cutting and opening ceremony tomorrow at 1:30. Yes, 1:30. Just to let the community know, you're welcome to come and attend. And the more that we have out there, the merrier. So thank you. Moving on to item 9A, bylaws, permissive tax exemption bylaw. Someone will put that motion on the table. Councillor Cherry.
I move that the 2025 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2396 be adopted.
Seconder for the motion, Councillor Lucel. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9B, zoning text amendment bylaw 2397. And just going to ask Mr. Simon for an overview before we put this on the table.
Thank you, Your Worship. So through Your Worship to all of council, staff have prepared a city-led zoning bylaw text amendment to amend section 4 of the city's zoning bylaw right now to add the use daycare as a permitted use in all zones. Right now, it's not permitted in every single zone. Some of the residential zones will permit it as a home occupation, and this would essentially allow a daycare to operate anywhere within the city. There's no surprise that there's such a drastic need for this use within the community. The city has received inquiries and one pending application right now of looking at opening up a daycare within currently the C2 zone. So as staff are looking into this and trying to direct the applicant accordingly, instead of making them go through the whole zoning bylaw text amendment process as an applicant-driven amendment for one specific zone, staff decided to bring this forward as an in-house amendment because as we're working through the comprehensive zoning bylaw rewrite, some of the feedback we've got from the public is we need to make this use much more accessible within the community. So as part of that rewrite, staff are going to be proposing having that use in all zones. So this is coming in a little bit ahead of the rewrite in response to drastic need within the community. And I know that it's only looking, 5-6 months potential difference between this amendment before council today in consideration as part of the comprehensive rewrite. But I think as everyone knows, because it is such a drastic need, those 5-6 months can really make such an impact for people that are currently waiting for childcare within the city. So definitely looking at expediting this to bring before council for their consideration today. We did reach out to Interior Health for feedback, and staff have also met with members of the Child Care Referral Society locally to try and better understand what some of the pressing needs are to facilitating more childcare within the community. And this was identified as kind of a first step towards reducing some of the red tape, reducing some of the bureaucracy, to actually allowing more daycares to open in the community. And staff do want to note, we do have our Chief License Inspector, Mr. Gibbs, in the room today. There are a lot of checks and balances with daycare facilities to make sure that they're not opening up in inopportune areas, I should say. So staff don't see any major risk with allowing this as a permitted use in all zones.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Simon, and thank you for bringing it to us today so that we're not holding any applications up as we move forward. Councillor Cherry.
I'm just gonna put this on the table. I move that zoning bylaw amendment 2397 be read at first time.
Second for the motion, Councillor Palmer. Any comments or questions, Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Mayor. Souls through the planner. Thank you. Definitely in support of this in general. A couple of questions, and you partially answered it. So the two zones that sort of raised questions in my mind would be industrial and park zones, with some changes that are happening in natural park zones. So further to your comments on other checks and balances, if in your opinion would that inappropriate use in either industrial or natural park, or those other checks and balances would look after those aspects of that?
Through your worship, Councillor Palmer, yes, they would. And I can elaborate if you would like me to elaborate.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, so through your worship, so whenever a new daycare is opening, there is certainly an interior health process that they need to go through, along with the city's fire inspection process, building inspection process. The interior health process specifically has an environmental assessment that it looks at. So if someone's going to open up a childcare facility next to a heavy industrial plant, then that wouldn't pass the environmental assessment process to make sure that it's operating within a safe area where there's not going to be exposure to fumes that could be toxic for children in the area, so that it is a safe operating environment. And with respect to public parks specifically, all the public parks that we have right now that are zoned P1 in the zoning bylaw are owned by the city. So they would need city permission if they were ever looking at opening up a daycare within those public park facilities right now.
Thank you. That's your question. Good. Any other questions for staff regarding this? Councillor Lund.
Yeah, your worship. Not really a question of staff, but just want to point out that the shortage of childcare services here is a significant issue, especially with our as our population grows and looking at the demographics of our community, which is very young. According to the report, only a handful of zones allow for them, so it is quite challenging to find a place to open one, and very complicated due to zoning restrictions. So yeah, I'm happy to move forward at this point with a zoning amendment. And yeah, just as was pointed out by staff, it's important to note that the amendment doesn't mean we'll lose control over so many other things that are done through the permitting process, like health, safety, building, fire, etc. So I'm happy to move forward with this zoning amendment bylaw as presented.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Item number 2. Councillor Lusson.
Zoning amendment bylaw number 2397 be read a second and third time.
Second for that motion, Councillor Cherry. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Gentlemen, moving on to item C, business license regulations amendment bylaw. Mr. Simon, do you have an overview on that you would like to speak to?
Through your worship, I will defer to Mr. Gibbs, who is our Chief License Inspector and has been spearheading updates to the business licensing protocol.
Mr. Gibbs, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in front of you, we have a proposed amendment to the business license bylaw. There is a few housekeeping minor amendments associated with this proposal. The substantial amendments related to this proposal are to extend the renewal penalty date. So pushing it from January 1st to January 31st, the beginning of each year, to accommodate the Christmas season as well as city hall closures. This is done to help support both the businesses that are typically busy during that time of year, as well as the finance staff. It gives them a little bit additional time to be able to get those renewals out and then extending the time period before that penalty would then be applied. The second significant amendment would be the allowing the licensing inspector, specifically the chief licensing inspector, myself being that, the authority to cancel or suspend licenses if they are operating outside of their approved conditions or have not paid their renewals. As a little bit of context for that specific piece of the amendment, we have had historical challenges with people not renewing their business licenses that could go into arrears for many years, incurring additional penalties when they're not actually in business. So our current process does require that they do submit a cancellation request. This would amend that process so that we could cancel their license if the business ceased to operate.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. All right, does somebody want to put the motion on the table for me, please? Councillor Cherry,
I move that business license amendment bylaw 2398 be read the first time.
second for the motion, Councillor Lucille. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Item number 2. Councillor Cherry,
I move that business license amendment bylaw number 2398 be read a second and third time.
second for the motion, please. Councillor Palmer. Any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a note on it. I think this is good, especially that renewal period, which happens right after Christmas and is kind of awkward. Just a comment regarding the opportunity. I don't know if they're all through the mail, and as far as business license renewals, I think they are. So it's an opportunity for communications for those that have business license communication. So I think in the past, there's maybe been some lost opportunity. That'd be certainly more for staff because we're just paying for a stamp and an envelope and processing. So there's an opportunity for some information there. I guess it sort of begs the question whether in today's days, we should actually be doing these renewals through mail, but that's a separate question from this. Okay, thank you.
All right, good. Any other comments, questions? Saying none, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 11A, Resort Municipality Initiative Funding Recommendations. So, Ms. Moffat or Mr. Watmo, do you have any presentation? Yes, you do.
Actually, no presentation today, but we are happy to answer any questions. I did just want to quickly make a few comments about the allocations for today. So there is a mathematical error in the grand total it's showing there. It says 119,000. It should be 114,000. The reason for that is we did allocate $5,000 to the Winter Carnival in 2024. So I removed the line item. It did not adjust the grand total on the bottom. So that's why there's that variance of $5,000. And the only other thing I wanted to just make note of in the allocation amounts, there is a $0 for recreational trails and infrastructure. A couple of reasons for that. First is we wanted to review the arts and culture infrastructure applications and then the events applications. Those are kind of our priorities where we would like to look first. And then if there was any leftover funding, we could have moved it to the recreational trail piece. And in the past couple of years, CED has also been trying to use EOF funding for the recreational trails pieces as well to help free up some more of the RMI funding for the events and the arts and culture infrastructure. And as we know, increasing costs and capital projects has been using a lot more of the budget for the RMI funding that we've been coming in. So we've just been trying to really manage that appropriately and make sure we still have lots of events and programming and arts and culture infrastructure opportunities using that funding.
Great, thank you for that. Council, any questions regarding the motion and the funding recommendations that are here before we put the motion on the table? Seeing none, can I get somebody, Councillor Orlando?
Sure, yeah, Your Worship, I move that Resort Municipality Initiative RMI funding of $119,000 be approved for the following project categories as follows.
Second for the motion, please. Councillor Palmer. Any further discussion on the motion?
Sorry,
Mayor Sol.
Can we change that recommendation to be 114,000?
Okay.
100, it was at 15 or 14?
114,000,
14,
yeah.
that's right.
Thank you.
114 as amended.
Sorry.
So you're both okay, moving and seconding?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Lano?
Yeah, Your Worship. Yeah, these recommendations were reviewed at the Tourism Initiatives Committee last month and aligned with the goals in the 2022-2024 RDS. And yeah, financial impacts have been considered within our long-term financial plan. And yeah, it supports a lot of great initiatives that are listed here, many of which you know and attend. So I'm happy to see this come forward, and staff, I'm sure, or anyone involved is happy to answer the question.
All right, seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Item number B. Do you want to speak to that briefly, Ms. Moffat?
No, I'm going to let Director Watmow. That one.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, Your Worship. This request, or the scope of the COF initiative includes identifying, gathering, and analyzing key economic, social, and environmental indicators such as local employment rates, business growth trends, air and water quality metrics, and energy consumption. We anticipate engaging one or more specialized data collection agencies to ensure that the data is accurate, comprehensive, and reflective of current realities. Now, who are those data collection agencies? Well, there's many, some of which you may be familiar with, like CityBiz, which is supported the Choose Revelstoke website, Moneris, Canada's largest point of sale system, or Community Capital Labs, which are researchers through ASU, and many, many others. So we don't have one specific in mind. There may be other opportunities to leverage this work with other partners and throughout the interior, other municipal and regional district partners for the interior. And additionally, this funding will support strategic analysis to identify actionable insights, align city goals with sustainable development, and improve both short-term and long-term planning. This project aligns with the OCP action item in section 3.3.1. Action item 1, which is to collect, share, and mentor local business and economic data to enhance understanding of trends, indicators, track progress on key indicators, and better inform policy and investment decisions. We want to also share business intelligence and best practices with the community through effective use of communication tools wherever appropriate.
Perfect, thank you. Any comments, questions from council before we put the motion on the table? Put the motion on the table, Councilor.
So this is item 11B. I move that a recommendation be made to the Columbus-Shuswap Regional District Board, CSRD, to allocate 25,000 of economic and environmental indicator, 25,000 towards the economic and environmental indicator data analysis and strategy.
Second for the motion, please, Councillor Devlin. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Item number 2, we are not going to put on the table right at the present time. We'll do that later, and that's because we will have something, a report that we can have that we can actually go to CSRD with. Is that correct, Ms. Wood?
That is correct, Mayor Sauls. So this one is requesting EOF funds or a recommendation to the CSRD for the RED application, which has not yet received council support. So we're just hoping to have this one motion come forward on October 22nd with that other report.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, we're going to move on to item C, BC Transit Improvement Program and the Transit Expansion Plan, the MOU. So, Mr. Black, do you have an overview that you would like to speak to before we put the motion on the table?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to council. As the council's aware, last year we started operating the two systems as one with two contracts. At that time, we also entered into an agreement with BC Transit to expand the service hours and acquire fleet should the province approve funding and procurement of that fleet. Unfortunately, we did not make the cut, and So this winter, we will be operating the two systems with two contracts, but as one system. Again, we will, at this request, submit with council's approval the request to have another 12,000 service hours and go for procurement of 6 vehicles starting next year. This action is critical for that long-term success of the system. It is also important for us to encourage the province then to be a 40% shareholder in our transit system. My understanding to date is that we've had a very successful transition from operating the two systems under one. Revenues are up. Once we get a new fleet that's all accessible, I think we're going to have an outstanding system for the size of community that we are. Lastly, in talks with BC Transit over the last few months, they indicated that we were at the top of the list that did not make the cut. So we were the first losers in that request for funding. And given that, I'm feeling optimistic that we will make the cut for this year, and therefore asking for council's adoption of this action and moving forward to hopefully have a consolidated system in the next year or so.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Any questions from Mr. Black before we put the motion on the table? Seeing none, who'd like to put it on? Councillor Lano?
Oh, Your Worship, no, just following questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with questions of staff. I think it was in June that council requested an update on interim measures to account for the extra year of lack of accessible buses, including looking at things like those who don't qualify or not eligible for things like the Handy-Door bus, like for example, somebody who struggles without an accessible bus, but needs it, for example, every day to get to work, those kinds of things. And I'm just wondering regarding that update, if there is an update from staff on steps that have been taken in the interim to deal with this situation, which unfortunately due to provincial funding decisions are going to be extended for another year.
Mr. Black.
Thank you, Worship, and to Councillor Orlando. We have been made aware of a few concerns regarding the combined system. I will be preparing another report that will authorize the funding for both the Resort Shuttle and the BC Transit funding for the next year, likely in the next 30 days. For your consideration. At that time, I was hopeful to provide a robust section on those concerns that we've been made aware of, and would like to provide that at that time. However, we do know that there are issues with the changing of the winter and summer schedules. This year, the partners of our operator and RMR, we are now moving towards a path of being consistent with the service year-round for those normal hours. And then the additional hours for winter operations would then be flexible. So we're trying to now develop a system that is consistent year-round, providing that base level of service, which is not something that we've had previously. The concerns about accessible vans and vehicles. Yes, there is an issue there. Unfortunately, none of our fleet is accessible at this time. New procurement of vehicles will alleviate that problem 100%. I did ask our operator to pursue any options for additional fleet that would be accessible. And unfortunately, that's a very rare commodity right now in the province. He could acquire some regular school buses, but that would not alleviate the issues. We are aware that the fleet struggles are province-wide. It's expensive, delays in procurement. We need to get through this next step. And like I said, for next year, if we are successful, we will have a fully accessible system. Handy Dart is still our best option in calling ahead for service if you're not able to utilize the existing fleet. And it's still the best option that we have at this time, fortunately. Should we be unsuccessful with this request? Everything Revelstoke has committed to, again, follow up next year if we have to continue operating the two contracts under one system. And I'll provide more updates in the next month or so.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you.
Yeah, just a question to the director. So our revenues are up, our ridership is up. Is the net cost to the taxpayer down?
At this point in time, and again, with working with Ms. Moore and Resort Association, the tourism, CED, and all of the funding streams that we have, I believe that we will remain static, even though we're adding more hours, because the revenue stream, as you are aware, went from $4 a ride to $2 a ride, and we still more than doubled the funds available from the revenue stream. So if we're continue successful in this manner, that portion of the city's cost will be offset by, again, increased revenue. And working with RAW, tourism, RMR, I believe we'll also be able to get our partners to commit to season passes for the residential or staff housing at the mountain, which would be approximately 300 season passes to offset, again, more and more of these costs. It's a real exceptional system, in my opinion, throughout the province. The cost to the province or to the city is extremely low in relation to the service level that we provide. Long answer, yes, we're going to be static or slightly less.
Okay, so I'm just gonna confirm.
Yeah.
And so revenues are up, ridership is up, which are both good. The net cost to the taxpayer is approximately flat, so that's better than costing more.
Given this market.
Thank you.
Councillor Cherry?
Thanks, Marcels. All in all, it sounds like a great success, so I'm happy to see that this continue on. I do have a question through the chair to the director, Black. You mentioned that service levels, that scheduling, they're pushing to be consistent year round. There was a pilot project that started last winter adding a late night bus going to RMR. Was that a success, and will that be continued this year?
It was a success. Our partners, as of yesterday morning, indicated to me that they were, because there's only a few businesses open very, very late at night in the downtown core, that the funds might be better utilized providing additional routes through the dinner hours in the community from the resort to downtown. I will be meeting with the partners afternoon to discuss this. In my opinion, it's just not so much as convenience to one group, but making sure that all users can get home safely. And so my long answer is I'm hopeful that we will continue that late night service till 2 o'clock in the morning on weekends and that third evening on staff holidays, and likely over Christmas the whole week.
I would encourage you to. So that's great news. Thanks.
Councillor Doucette?
Thank you, Nicole. Just a question through to the director. I think the progress we've made has been great. One thing I have heard is the lack of bus routes that are running during the day in downtown, as well as some of the timeframes are making it challenging for bus drivers to be able to hit their routes on time, which has resulted in what I've heard are some unsafe driving practices and maybe some extra collisions or incidents. And I want to know if that is factual, that what I've heard, or if that is just through the.
To my knowledge, through your worship, to all of council is I've been made aware of, I think only 2 accidents with the buses in the last year. I might not have been informed of all of them, there have been no significant accidents. The accidents I'm aware of were mirrors, hitting other mirrors. And so I can't speak with great knowledge to that rumor or fact.
Okay. And will the downtown bus routes during the day, will there be a change in service level there with this? Or are we going to expect the same service levels in regards to that?
I would not expect any reduced service level anytime in the future for our system. As success and as the system grows and matures, we will be able to provide more and more of that fill-in service. I'm unaware that we are able to add additional routes right now for anything off of the backbone, which is the hotel to resort shuttle. So we're adding fleet as we need to pick up people that are left behind. And so that is part of our contingency planning for that. Midday, I'm not expecting any changes at this point in time. I will come back to you again in about 30 days with the updated contract for the shuttle and the scheduling and the routes, at which time I can have the operator here to answer additional questions about that.
Cool. One last, as Councilor Orlando brought up, the lack of accessibility on our buses, it would be nice to see more hours put towards the handy dart. I know it doesn't necessarily encapsulate everybody that has accessibility issues, but I think having more hours available for people to utilize that will kind of help while we're waiting for procurement of accessible vehicles.
If I may add through your worship.
Sure.
Part of next year's proposed 12,000 hours of service hours is to increase the handy hours from Monday through Friday, I believe it is right now, from 7:30 to 5:30. With the new program that council and hopeful is moving forward with today, those hours will go from 1,820 to 2,000, which will allow us to provide service on weekends.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.
All right, we need someone to put this motion on the table for me, please. Councilor Russo.
I move that the Transit Improvement Program, Transit Expansion Plan, MOU with BC Transit be approved and that the Chief Administrative Officer and Mayor be authorized to sign the Transit Expansion Plan.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Devlin. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'd like to thank Director Black for answering questions and giving a presentation, providing some details on the update. I'm happy to see responsiveness as we overcome the challenges caused by unfortunately not attaining the provincial funding this year around. I think what I like to see and what Director Black has indicated during the presentation is a willingness to try and find some interim solutions, try to deal with the feedback that we as council members receive about challenges that the system cause. And I do recognize that, as we move to improve our system on the whole, we have seen an uptick in numbers, for example, in user hours, despite having a slow snow season last year, and that we continue to evolve the system to something better, but we are mindful in the meantime of some of the challenges that arise from that system. So thank you for taking the time and the follow-up and looking to make those improvements. I do appreciate it very much.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to communications. Thank you, Mr. Black. Advisory Planning Commission, Councilor Cherry, you have comments on those minutes.
I do, thanks, Sauls. The commission looked at a couple of projects in town, the first one being a rezoning and development permit for 14 unit stacked row house along 4th Street. The commission was quite impressed with it, with just some minor changes. The second project they looked at was a 61 unit ground orientated multifamily development, strata development on the lower bench of the RMR lands at Airport and Nickel. If you guys, anybody here would like to see more, I do think they should take a look at the applications.
Great, appreciate it. Any comments from council? Seeing none, moving on to Tourism Initiatives Committee, Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. So at the September 18th Tourism Initiatives Committee, it was the first one for our new Economic Development Director, Ryan Watmow. So welcome aboard. And this statement equally applies to Revelstoke Area Economic Development Commission report further down on the agenda. I just want to extend thanks to our Economic Development Coordinator, Kat Moffat, who's been really just putting in a phenomenal effort in the interim while we were hiring staff. And so thank you very much for that. And also just ahead of that meeting, I want to thank Finance Director Shannon Moore for both her and Kat's help getting up to speed on this quarterly meeting. As was adopted earlier in this agenda, we approved funding for a number of initiatives, including Luna, Revi Live, Spanda Collective's Winter Carnival, which is going to be in a bit of a new structure, less city, more Winter Carnival focused Winter Carnival. And Railway Museum, Arts, Luna Rail Products, and the Visual Arts Centers. Paddle has lots of different things on here. Also, additionally, we set aside $400,000 for a new pump track as part of the 25 to 27 resort development strategy. And yeah, excited to see that project get underway. And yeah, well, that's about it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments, questions from council? Seeing none, and we move on to Social Development Committee, September 25th, Councillor Lusa.
Thanks, Mayor Souls. We had Director Watmow. It was his first meeting, so he introduced himself to the group. We talked about the support of maintaining the community development coordinator role that Mr. T was in, and hopefully we can get that role filled for the city. We talked about the cold weather response. This was something that was organized through nonprofits to be activated when the temperature dips below a certain level. We had been planning on using the Frontiers restaurant. Now that's no longer an option. We're looking for a space to be able to operate this. So the committee is writing a letter of support, and hopefully the city is able to offer space for that to happen. We also talked about the living wage calculation that Ms. Moffat is organizing and having the 3 different tiers to the calculation. And then Community Economic Development is going to be part of organizing Welcome Week, which would be November 22nd to 29th.
Great, thank you. Any comments, questions from council? Councillor Cherry, Councillor Palmer.
Sure. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let the public know that there's currently a living wage calculator on Facebook for anybody for rents. If anybody has the opportunity, please fill that out.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, question, Councillor Lucio. So on the Frontier rooms that they were using, so what was reported on the fire was that it was minimal damage and that those units would be potentially back in operation soon. And then I was also reading one of the news articles that even the night of the fire, some people stayed there. So it seems like those rooms should be available still. I'm just getting sort of clarification, I guess.
Yeah, so there's 2 different programs. So there is the winter shelter program. So that is where we get funding from BC Housing, and we have 4 rooms at the Frontier that Community Connections oversees and controls the people going in and out of them. The cold weather response is something separate from that, which is activated, I think at -10, just to help get people off the streets and out of their vehicles and somewhere safe to stay overnight. So that was something that would pop up, and that was going to be in the restaurant section of the Frontier with some portable cots staffed overnight and have everybody in and out within a 12-hour window. Now, without that space available, we're looking for another location to be able to set up 10 cots for this to be staffed if that happens to be the case this winter.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we will move on to Revelstoke Area Economic Development Commission minutes of September 11th. Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. Yeah, at the September 11th meeting, staff provided update on work over the summer, including fulfilling grant requirements, supporting the East Kootenay Immigration Pilot Program, which Council saw at this table. In addition, working with the LFI and the 2024 Resort Municipality funding project, reconciling that with the finance department. So thanks for the work over the summertime. Again, short-staffed to accomplish those goals. At the meeting, Tourism Revelstoke, Danielle Hamilton presented an update on the DMP, the Destination Management Plan, noting progress on 10 of the 47 projects are complete, and provided a bit of an update on other things they're working on around that time, including the Sinixt Canoe Journey event and the Thanksgiving Back program. Staff reported on a couple of different grant applications that are being prepared, including the REDIP, which was mentioned earlier in the meeting, and the Can Export Community Investments programs. This one of them was pushed back from the meeting agenda today, including they did some preliminary SWOT discussion at the commission table with all of the commissioners present at the meeting, looking at discussion on local, regional, provincial, and who knows, international partnerships, and the ability to leverage opportunities to meet community goals through that projects. And one of the projects that just happened last week was the meeting included preparations for the Creative City Summit, which was attended by FDEV staff, one FDEV staff member, as well as Arts Revelstoke members last week for a convention in Vancouver. This is a sort of municipal government-driven arts-focused organization. And I think this is leading towards setting the foundations for a comprehensive cultural plan for the city, which has been sort of on our strategic planning documents for a while. So thanks to the volunteers and staff who attended that. I'm happy to hear reports back next meeting about how that went.
Great, thank you. Any comments, questions from council? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to questions from the press. Mr. Martin, you're here from Mountaineer. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. September 30th was Truth and Reconciliation Day, led by Revelstoke's Truth and Reconciliation Group. As they were going through their recap of how events went, it is a goal and hope for future events that there is more support from the city, whether financial or through sporting events and stuff like that. I know previously council has talked about trying to proactively instead of reactively meet these requests and stuff like that. Through Your Worship, is this something that is to be considered for next year's events?
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we would like to hear is comments from the group that organizes this, and maybe even have them make a presentation to council prior to the event, so that we're publicizing it through this forum, and then we can see who of us can be there to support. So we'll reach out to them if we can do that, Ms. Floyd, through our connections, and go from there. But you're more than welcome to report that out. We really appreciate that. Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you.
Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, you were just a quick follow-up to the question. Both myself and another councillor attended the event, and heard the call for cooperation. I would just note that the city has many points of contact working on reconciliation issues, and as in my experience would be more than willing to work together for a bit more of a formal engagement on that particular event next year, which is a great event, and I encourage everyone to attend. So thank you for the question. Absolutely is the answer, I feel, from myself, the mayor, and everyone in council.
Thanks. Ms. Delisle, do we have any other questions from the press?
We do not, your worship.
You all right, council? I'd like to go in camera pursuant to sections 90.1 J and K of the community charter. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Lucille. All in favor? Motion's carried. We will take a 10-minute break and be back here in camera. Thank you.